Thank you for listening to the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast with hosts Clara and Jimmy Hinton. If you're new to the podcast, please look us up on your favorite podcast app, subscribe, like, and share so that you never miss an episode. If you'd like to further support us, visit patreon.com/speakingout and check out the different rewards. You'll find exclusive rewards if you sign up as a patron of the podcast. Thank you for your support, and let's get into the show. Welcome to this week's podcast. Thank you, as always, to our patrons who make the podcast possible. And another reminder, coming up in 1 week, next week on October 18th, that's a Tuesday at 12 o'clock noon, we have our first Zoom for people at the $25 tier and up. It's our first training that is available only to our patrons.
So excited
and, this
about
is abuse prevention training. So very specialized, and we're looking forward to that. So if you are interested, you can go ahead and visit patreon.com/speakingout. You can sign up. You can come and go as you please. But every month we're going to be having a live Zoom on. It'll always be on Tuesdays at 12 o'clock noon Eastern. Oh boy. Social media is not always what you think.
Exactly right.
We're talking about today kind of a really important topic. Church leaders, if you're listening, parents who have little kids, grandparents who have grandkids, please listen up. Share this episode. I'm telling you, you've got to be careful what you post on social media. There are pedophiles galore on social media. This episode came about because, one, I guess kind of a bigger picture, the SBC is all over the news. They just did a 60-minute special with the president of the SBC. And, of course, the SBC is always talking out both sides of its mouth about all these changes, these wonderful changes that they're doing. They're taking abuse seriously and abuse prevention. I don't buy it for a second. And the reason I don't buy it, the number one reason I don't buy it is because the SBC still kicks their doors open for registered sex offenders while it keeps their registered sex offender status private. They keep them anonymous. And J.D. Greer's church, the Summit Church, still has its policy that coddles abusers, registered sex offenders, and keeps them intentionally, keeps them anonymous within the church. They still have that policy on their website right now, today, as we're recording this.
It's just hard to believe, and harder yet to accept that that's what they are doing. It really is.
It is.
It is. It is.
And so here's the problem, and here's kind of the springboard into this week's podcast. My mom informed me that one of my uncles who spent years and years in prison, I'm just going to read his charges because I think that'll make it easier here. That way I'm not misconstruing any of this information. By the way, he was a supposedly retired minister. I don't know what the situation was. In all fairness, I don't know what led to his dismissal or retirement from the church. But he was a pastor. He also was a chaplain for a sheriff's department, and he was a sheriff's deputy. He was arrested when it was discovered that he was raping young children. And so here are his offenses. And by the way, I'm reading right off of the PA Megan's Law Sex Offender Registry. He is a registered sex offender. He recently got out of prison. And to my shock, which nothing should surprise me, Mom told me right before we recorded that he's on Facebook. So I looked it up. Sure enough, there he is, and we'll get into that. Here are his offenses. US 018, possession of child pornography. Second offense, VA, Virginia 001, aggravated sexual battery. Next offense, VA 001, aggravated sexual battery. It's a second charge of sexual battery. Next offense, VA 005, rape. Next offense, VA 002, forcible sodomy. Next offense, VA 016, object sexual penetration. All right. And I can tell you what little bit we know. These crimes were absolutely horrific. All right. So he
was
gets
with a 10-year-old child, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he gets spends a very long time in prison, and I think maxes out, gets out of prison, and jumps right on social media. I want to read his profile, and I want to tell you guys, keep in mind that churches bend over backwards to keep abusers anonymous in the church. So if you don't know, you don't know. All right. So these crimes happened in Virginia.
All right.
He spent his prison term in Virginia.
Moves
to Pennsylvania.
Right. Right.
So all of a sudden, here comes this man into your church. All right. This is the scenario that we're painting for you. Here comes this happy couple, him and his wife, who waited for him. They come into your church, and you're going to do your homework. You're going to look up on Facebook because that's what people sometimes do.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right.
Hey, even for job interviews and all, they'll say, be careful what you post, because most employers look on Facebook for your background and to see what you've posted.
That's right.
And all that information.
So here we have, you bring up his Facebook page, which we'll get into that. That's a whole nother topic. Right away, you look, the profile picture is him gazing lovingly into his wife's eyes. It's like this staged photo, and they're just madly in love. The cover photo, the background photo, is a picture of 3 girls who are his grandkids. Family man, right? Well, then you're like, oh, I'm going to look at his about section. I'm just going to read this stuff to you. Retired Christian minister and deputy sheriff. Wow. Background in law enforcement. He's not only a retired minister, but background in law enforcement.
Right.
We're going to put him on our security team.
Right. Exactly right. Yep.
Studied Master of Divinity. That's my degree. That's an 84 credit hour master's degree. A massive 4-year master's degree. Very educated.
Very. Knows the Bible inside and out.
Studied certified law enforcement officer. Studied doctor of ministry. Not only does he have the MDiv that I have, I don't have a doctorate.
Nope.
I don't
went
have a
on
DMin.
and got a doctorate.
He went on and got his doctor of ministry. Studied religious education. That's his undergraduate, I presume, his undergraduate degree. Married in 1979, the year I was born. I'm 43 years old. Married 43 years. Family man through and through. Educated, retired minister, has all the degrees. Guess what? If you didn't check the sex offender registry, he checks all the boxes.
And then some.
So here's somebody who I guarantee you, A church is going to say, we would be stupid not to put this guy on some kind of teaching ministry or, backup preacher or something like that, because he's so incredibly qualified.
You know what else?
We're going to put him on our security team and have him preach.
Guarantee you he'd volunteer to just be a wonderful
look at my
volunteer.
look at my background.
Yes. Oh my. Oh.
And then you go a little bit further, and we happen to know because we know. But most people wouldn't know. And how could they? And why would they?
There would be nothing to prompt you to look beyond that.
Exactly right.
Nothing to prompt you.
And
at
so
all. Not a hint.
Our point is, one, you absolutely have to do your homework. I don't care if somebody's volunteering one time out of a year to do anything at your church. Check out if they're on any kind of sex offender registry.
This information is public. It's there to help us. This information, it took you, Jimmy, less than 60 seconds to pull his name up and his all of his information here.
And by the way, they're very, very religious people. Now, we don't really talk, we don't communicate with people on my dad's side of the family, but I know they're church-going people and very, very involved in the life of the church. So my assumption is that they're absolutely embedded, deeply embedded into the life of whatever church they went to. Where if you just do a search on Facebook, you're like, holy cow, family man, loving wife, grandkids as his cover photo.
It would be
This is wonderful. Look at all the degrees and experience.
It would be so hard to put his criminal background with his social media background.
You'd have no reason to if you didn't go out of your way to look. Right. You'd have no reason to. You would look at this on the surface and be like, well, holy cow. Again, the law enforcement seals the deal. That's one where people are like, wow, not only was he a sheriff's deputy, but he was a chaplain to a sheriff's department. And I think he even lists the department he was at, which is crazy to me. Let's look. No, he doesn't. Interesting. Doesn't list the church or the sheriff's department. But he does list the Criminal Justice Academy that he attended. And he lists he lists the schools, all the schools and colleges that he went to. He lists those, but he doesn't list the sheriff's department. And this is interesting because we were talking, and we're both pretty sure that he was serving actively as a sheriff's deputy at the time of his arrest. And so it's interesting that he lists on his Facebook page that that's his experience, but doesn't list the sheriff's department.
No. And he forgot a big chunk of his life here. He forgot the criminal part.
Yeah, that's not listed. Incidentally, it's not listed on his Facebook page.
A big chunk, right.
He years and years and years in prison. And so my point is, churches... Let's make a couple assumptions here. Not assumptions, maybe scenarios. All right. Let's say scenario one, he walks into a church and he says, there's something that I need to get off my chest. I spent time in prison. It was this one, and I can write the script for this. I'm telling you guys I can write the script for this. It was this one time. It was a mistake. I was at a low point in my life, and I drank alcohol, and this is not who I am. And one thing led to another, and I had this moment of weakness, and I just stumbled. And the Lord woke me up. Prison was a wake-up call. And my goodness, now I minister to all these people in the prison. You can call the prison. You can talk to them. I did ministry while I was there. I mentored all these inmates while I was in there. Never got in trouble once. I was on good behavior.
I will guarantee you he was the
And that's probably all true.
Model inmate. Model. Guarantee you.
And so now here I am, and I just wanted to be completely transparent with you. And I've been forgiven by the grace of God, and I'm just here to serve in whatever capacity you guys want. And by the way, I want to point out that I have a background in law enforcement. So
you're gonna love him.
Absolutely.
You're gonna love him.
And so,
yeah.
So that's the problem that I have with churches like the Summit Church, J.D. Greer's church, where they have written in policy that a registered sex offender, we're going to keep that information from the church members. And we're going to assign accountability partners and have them sign this nonsense covenant agreement that says, I'm not going to go into the children's wing. So the churches are kept in the dark on purpose by the church leaders, and that's when the church leaders know. Now, scenario number 2
is
that the churches don't know.
Right.
And I don't know. Honestly,
No.
I don't have a clue
Right.
where he goes to church. I don't know where he goes to church. I don't know if they know or they don't know. I don't know. I don't know any of that.
No.
But let's just say scenario number 2. Here comes this married couple that's been married for 43 years. And they're madly in love. And this man just starts talking about his ministry, very humbly, by the way. That, somebody said, it's the inevitable question. When people walk into our church, the first question that people ask them is, where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I happen to be from this community. I used to live in, out of state, but, moved up here. I moved to Pennsylvania. The next question inevitably is, what do you do? Well, I'm retired.
Yeah.
Okay, what did you do? Well, I mean, humbly, I'm a retired minister.
Have a doctorate in ministry.
Oh, where'd you go to school? And then you start talking about your degree. Well, I did my undergraduate here. I did my master's here. And then I went on and I got my doctorate here. Well, holy cow. Have you ever considered kind of preaching and teaching just as a backup? Well, actually, I'm pretty bored. Retirement is, kind of low key.
I'm just having trouble breathing.
This is how this works, guys.
Yes,
I'm telling you, this is how this works.
Yes.
And so now the church leaders go on Facebook and they're like, well, we're going to do our due diligence. This is in scenario number 2 where they don't know that this man is on a sex offender registry for, I'm reading the charges, possession of child pornography, aggravated sexual battery, another aggravated sexual battery, rape, forcible sodomy, object sexual penetration. They don't know these charges. They don't know that he's currently, right now, on a sex offender registry. And so they're going to do their due diligence.
And see what's on Facebook.
And they're going to say, well, let's look on Facebook. Now, another interesting fact for all of you listeners. Pennsylvania, in the wake of the Jerry Sandusky stuff at Penn State, passed all kinds of legislation. At churches, anybody who even gets near children in any volunteer capacity, Sunday school teacher, minivan driver on a camping trip, anybody who has any kind of supervision of children in the church as a volunteer or paid position, doesn't matter, absolutely by law must get criminal background checks and child abuse clearances. Period. We have a file folder at our church that has current updated background checks and child abuse clearances. You know who doesn't need these clearances? You know who is not required whatsoever?
Tell me it's ministers.
Preachers.
Yep.
Elders.
There is
Here's
something
elder material.
So wrong about that.
We're going to make this man an elder of the church.
Something so wrong
Deacons,
about it. Something so wrong.
Sunday school teachers for adults. Absolutely zero requirement for any of them to get any criminal background checks or child abuse clearances. It's not required because they're not working with children.
Unbelievable. Really is.
And so you go on Facebook and you look and you say, my goodness, like, why did you come? Did it hurt? Did what hurt? When you fell from heaven.
Jimmy,
I'm serious. That's what churches are thinking.
I know. Yeah, you're right.
And
you are right.
They don't know any better.
You're right. Right.
And that's the problem. I'm telling you guys, here you have a dangerous, wildly dangerous predator.
I was appalled, to be honest with you, when I saw that he was there, which is legal for him to be there.
And it's legal, and that's the second part of this podcast.
It's very legal for him to be there, which means any photos of our children, grandchildren, those we love, those the age of the girl he raped, if they're made public on social media, he has access
100%
to all of those.
100%. And every single person in church.
Absolutely.
Anything you put on Facebook, he's on Facebook. And I'm telling you, it's not that people are like, oh, it'll be fine. In this scenario, people don't know.
People do not
They don't know. And so you put your pictures on Facebook and your kids' pictures. And yesterday was my middle son's birthday. And I was so tempted to put a picture of him and to say, put a thing and like, I'm so proud of my kid and it's his birthday. I didn't do it. At the end of the day, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because this is the kind of stuff I think about.
I know what you're saying. It just blows me away that he, even though he and meaning all the ones that are criminal sex offenders are not required to put that link on their social media page. Bad enough that they can have a Facebook page. But why are they not required to do that?
And it's not required.
Not required.
And so here's how I know. I made a phone call right here from this chair. Mom was sitting right here.
I witnessed the phone call.
5 minutes before we hit record.
Right.
I made a phone call to a friend who works in the prison who knows the law really well. He's in a position, trust me. He knows every in and out of the laws of sex offenders. And I just kind of gave him this scenario, quick backdrop, and I was like, this blows my mind that I go on Facebook and here's this Pennsylvania, I think, did away with the tiers recently. We used to have tier 1, 2, and 3, and I'm pretty sure they did it's not on his sex offender registry, and it used to say what tier they are.
Right,
so I heard rumors that they were doing away with the tiers because, prisoners' rights and all that BS. But he would be a tier 3 sex offender, which is the worst of the worst. And here he is on Facebook with, if you didn't know, you'd be like, my God, where did this person come from? This is so wonderful. He's so educated and so experienced.
You would trust this person immediately. And of course, you're going to trust him around your children because look at the background.
Absolutely. So I asked my friend, is he allowed to have a Facebook page? And he said, as long as he's not under supervision, there are exactly 0 restrictions. He can do whatever he wants.
That is so crazy.
He can have 10 Facebook pages.
Crazy to me. It just really is.
As long as if he did his time and there was a handoff and he's no longer under probationary supervision, he can have a Facebook page, he can have an Instagram, he can have a Snapchat, he can have whatever he wants. Zero,
just blows me
zero
away.
restrictions
It just
is
really
what
does.
he told me.
Just really does.
5 minutes before
Makes
we recorded.
zero
Zero
sense.
restrictions.
Right. 0 sense it makes to me.
So this is why, guys, we say it over and over. We're not being overprotective. We're not being over paranoid. We're telling you.
Do your check. Do your check on teachers. Do your check on your doctors.
Absolutely.
Do your check. Because stuff like this slips by. It really does. If somebody is not doing their homework with a background like this listed, you're going to want to hire a person like this. Want to get
They look
them,
overqualified,
right.
and I'm telling you, these people.
Absolutely.
They'll come in and they'll be all humble, and they'll say, you know, I'm kind of overqualified. You know, I'm ashamed to say that, but I'm overqualified to teach and preach. That was a long time ago. I've been retired for, you know, whatever,
X amount of years.
15 years, and
retirement was spent in prison, but yeah. But
yeah. So I'm a little rusty preaching. That's when people are going to come back and say, here's a guy who's humble. That puts them especially at the top of the list of people.
Yeah. And like you said, the law enforcement background is really a sealed deal.
Absolutely.
That's a sealed deal.
And so this is a scenario where I could see easily where somebody like him, and I'm not saying him in particular, but somebody like him would come in, and a church would be the one to say, we think you're elder material.
Absolutely.
Here
and this is not unique.
Not
Jimmy,
at all.
Is it? Not unique at all. If this is law that if he's without supervision now, serves his time according to law, which was, I want to say, around 20 years. It's got to be.
It was a long sentence. Yeah, I don't know exactly,
but
it was a long
years,
sentence.
Yes. That he served his time, gets out. He doesn't have to, I guess, legally tell anybody what's going on.
Well, I think those crimes were offense date September of 2000.
Yeah, I told you. I think he served 20 years. Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Conviction date 2006. Conviction date. Some of these convictions were 2005. So at least since 2005.
And he was
recently released. It wasn't that long ago.
No, just recently.
So
yeah.
Here's our point. I mean, this is frightening stuff. And if this doesn't scare you, I give up. I don't know what will. This really needs to make us think about, one, what we post on social media, and two,
absolutely,
just how important it is for us as church leaders, church members,
as parents,
schools, as parents,
grandparents,
as grandparents.
Yes.
Look at the background of every single coach, bus driver, you name it. Now, a lot of those people, depending on the state, have to get background checks. So that would catch somebody like him.
But I can tell you, after being on school board, Jimmy, for 15 years, there are people that honestly they slip through.
Yeah, the registries it's a flawed system.
There are flaws in the system. They do slip through. Maybe there's a 1-year lag of where that doesn't get marked on there, and you've hired the person in the meantime. Those things slip through.
Yeah.
They're not, not foolproof. But I've been making it a point myself of when I meet a new person, like in my line of work, one of the first things I do, because I do hiring of people, I look up their background on, Now, of course, in this case, how is it you knew where he was arrested, the state? He's now living in Pennsylvania. Sometimes we don't know what state to look.
Yeah,
into.
but still, I just did a Google search of his name, and it brought it right up. But sometimes it doesn't, and I've done Google searches of people who are currently on sex offender registries who are, tier 3 offenders,
right?
And you've got to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig before you find it. So again, it's a flawed system.
It is, but still, when you do your homework, you can find the answers.
Yeah,
you can.
So, looking at Facebook alone is not enough, because I'm telling you, if you didn't know,
well, we can put a totally false background for ourselves, really.
Absolutely. And so if you go on Facebook, here's a case in point where not only is that going to remove any fears that you might have,
Oh my, yeah.
it's going to have the opposite effect. You're going to say, holy cow, like this is somebody who, honestly, we ought to put at the head of our security team at church.
You will want to be friends with that person, invite that person into your home, ask security questions, things like that. This is a person that knows security law, that knows
Absolutely.
the law.
Yeah. What do we do?
Practice it.
What do we do to tighten up security
Yeah.
around here?
What do we do to keep our kids safe? How about? Yeah.
So this is frightening stuff, guys. And
This
I'm
is the
telling
real
you,
deal. This is
this
real
is reality,
time
yeah.
reality. Happened. Yeah. That this is real. Yeah. We need to pay attention.
And this is not a rare case.
I saw
this
this
is
past
so
week
common.
of friends of mine who posted so many nude pictures of their little children or children with just panties on. And it sickens me. I've said it time after time after time. Don't do that. Don't post those pictures.
Yep.
This man was into child pornography. Do you not think that he's not looking for photos like that? I mean, common sense are going to tell us. Data proves that that part doesn't stop. He put together, pornography. We don't want our children to be part of that. Just don't do it.
Yeah, we've got to do a better job. And I'm telling you, I'm going to remind you guys of this. The one thing that I constantly tell people to ask their church leaders, and this can be out of the blue. You can make it awkward or not awkward. I don't care. Ask your church leaders this question. Do we currently have any registered sex offenders attending this church?
Does that mean you'll get an honest answer?
Well, I think they will. I think
might.
You'll be able to tell if they beat around the bush and they're like, well, that's something that our policy is that we have covenant agreements, and that's your first sign
tip off.
They have at least one registered sex offender here, and they're keeping it a secret. Run from that church.
Most churches have church directories. Go down the church directory and just check.
Yeah, because if you think you're going to find somebody, if you're like, well, I don't know, maybe it's our Bible teacher. I'm going to look on Facebook, and this is what comes up. You're going to be like, no, it can't be him. This guy's like...
They did a good job with that.
Sheriff Step. This is like the model church member here. Can't be him. And then moving on. So this is the point, guys. Man, we have got to do the job that church leaders aren't, and we've got to do our homework, because this is the reality. These people, I cannot believe that the first thing, one of the first things he does when he gets out of prison is starts a Facebook page. A repentant person doesn't do that.
We've talked about that time.
You're not going to be on social media.
Time and time again, we've talked about it. You're going to stay away what tempted you in the first place.
But then,
if you're truly repentant, you're not going to mess with that stuff.
But then to put a glowing, like to make yourself look so experienced and well-rounded, and
just a big chunk of identity left out there.
Just a little bit. Be careful, guys. Be careful out there, because I'm telling you.
And do your work. That's all. Do your work. Be careful what you post. Please stop posting pictures that you think might be really cute of your kids.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't let other people have those pictures. And do your homework is what we're asking.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Because this is how it happens.
Yep. It's a real deal.
Unreal. But yeah, just because somebody's on a sex offender registry doesn't mean they can't have Facebook, Instagram, you name it.
I learned a lot about that. I thought that would be prohibited, but
unless they're under supervision, it's free reign. They can do whatever they want. Literally, they can do whatever they want. Wow. So that's where we're at. Be careful, guys. Do your homework, and don't apologize for it, because this is what abusers do.
That's our job.
Yeah.
Right.
So, all right. Thank you for tuning in to this episode, and we're out here trying to help make the world a safer place. So we'll catch you next round.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode. A special thank you to our patrons who make this podcast possible. Please help us get the word out by searching for the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast in your favorite podcast app. Be sure to hit subscribe and rate the show. Please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron and check out the rewards our patrons receive.